Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll want to take our seats and I'm sure we'll have some late stragglers, but it is 4 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the 2024 State of Research, and welcome to our viewers who are online as well, because we are Zooming this live. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you especially to Provost Holloway, President Stokes, and a couple of the regents who I see in the audience as well. Thank you all for taking the time to join us and what's becoming an annual tradition. So to get us started, I'd just like to do a quick, sorry, of course, there's never. Oh, so close, so close. There we go. Thank you. So to get us started, I'd like to read our land acknowledgement. Founded in 1889, the University of New Mexico sits on the traditional homelands of the Pueblo of Sandia. The original peoples of New Mexico, Pueblo, Navajo, and Apache, since time immemorial, have deep connections to the land and have made significant contributions to the broader community statewide. We honor the land itself and those who remain stewards of this land throughout the generations, and also acknowledge our committed relationship to indigenous peoples. We gratefully recognize our history. It's a little different than what I had on my iPad up here, so sorry about that. Again, it is my honor to welcome and introduce Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost Holloway, James Holloway.
Thanks, Greg. So thanks, Greg, and thanks to you all for being here today to talk about and hear about and learn about what is one of the key mission elements of the University of New Mexico, and that is research. And research is carried out all across the institution. As you may know, we have campuses here in Albuquerque, we have campuses in Rio Rancho, we have campuses in Valencia, Los Alamos, Taos, Gallup, as well as sites all across the state. So even beyond those campuses, all of those parts of the institution in their own ways contribute to the research mission. And I think we should recognize that and recognize the importance of research to an institution like UNM. The first observation I would make is it is very different to learn in an environment of research than it is to learn in an environment that is not a research environment. I always use this example. It's very different to learn mathematics from someone who knows mathematics than it is to learn mathematics from someone who discovers and creates mathematics. That's the impact of research on the learning environment. Beyond that, there's huge impacts of research on our state, on our nation, on our world, because the creation of new knowledge, the discovery of new ideas, new processes, this is what makes us uniquely human, our ability to create new things, conceive new thoughts that have never been conceived before. That's what this is about today. It's about the state of research at the University of New Mexico. So I thank you for being here today and appreciate your that you're here. I'd next like to introduce the president of the University of New Mexico, Garnet Stokes, who will share her thoughts on research before we bring Vice President Fisher up to tell us what is the state of research. President Stokes.
Thank you, everybody. So always appreciate James. Usually he has to talk after me, and now I'm realizing how hard it is to talk after him. So I get the experience. So, well, it is very good to have you here for a State of the University research address from Ellen, and I really am looking forward to it. But before turning it back over to James and then hearing from Ellen, I wanted to share a little bit about our role and responsibilities as the University of New Mexico's flagship university. And right now, it's only Carnegie Research One institution. So you might have heard this, but Carnegie is rethinking and is revamping its definition of what a Carnegie Research One institution is. And I would say that that's a good thing, because I think what it does is provide a lot more clarity for institutions that are seeking to see themselves recognized as institutions that are focused on research. So maybe this time next year, I won't be standing in front of you saying that I'm the president of the state's only Research One institution. I'll be saying instead that I'm the president of the state's original Research One institution. Now, I will tell you, I think this is a good thing for the state of New Mexico to actually have recognized that there are, in fact, two Research One institutions here. So I welcome that change to the Carnegie classification. But what does it really mean? And all it really means is that we do a great deal of research and lots of it. And I think we all know that we do this research across the entire institution, as the provost mentioned. And I think we're really good at it. But the fact is, I don't want to steal any of Dr. Fisher's thunder on, what the state really is. So I'm going to let her, talk about everything. But I will say that you're going to be amazed by the sheer numbers of what's been accomplished in 2023 alone. And that's not a surprise to anybody in this room, because all of you are making such a difference with regard to scholarship here at the university. So whether we're, our eyes are on the stars or seeking answers at the microscopic level, I think we really are, as an institution, as faculty and researchers, we're really changing the way people look at the world every day. And we do this work every day. I think you all know, if you've heard some things that have been said lately, that we are, Iceland has had yet another, another magma event. And we have people that are studying what's happening with the volcanoes there. We scan the edges of the galaxy. We're learning more about life on Earth. We're using working to preserve and celebrate native languages and local dialects, which are uniquely New Mexican, and that make our state sound like no place else. And I've loved seeing some of the coverage of this, even in our local Albuquerque Journal, because I think it's reflective of what we do here that is so unique. Making a lot of strides. We're prolonging the standard of prolonging life and improving the standard of living for everybody here. We've discovered, and you might have heard this if you were at the State of the University address, we've discovered that the massive presence of plastics in our environment has led to microplastics showing up in every single human placenta that was tested as part of one research study. And I really liked this, finding new ways to treat knee arthritis, but nobody's been able to tell me what that is yet. But, having my own body, kind of help fix this problem, I'm thrilled. And then, of course, the vaccines for cholesterol. A lot of us, as we age, are looking forward to that one too. So for me, this is all kind of life-changing, groundbreaking work. And I will say, and I think, the provost and I share this perspective, research is more than discovery and innovation. What I've appreciated about the leadership is that we really are talking about the importance of collaboration, the importance of celebration, and kind of being good neighbors together. We take pride in working together. So the collaboration is an important component of our success in so many of the problems that we try to solve, or so many of the research projects that our faculty and researchers are engaged in. So, many of you might have heard me say, I call us the University for New Mexico. I'm a big believer in what it is that the flagship big public university should be doing in the state in which it resides. We know that we are having an impact on the world at large. We know that what we do is global, but so much of what we do is also local. It's dealing with local problems that turn out to be global in scale and global in impact. And you all know about our first grand challenges. That was what they were intended to do. We launched them in 2018. The goal was really to address really serious problems where we could make investments and do the work and make a difference here in New Mexico, but also make a difference across the world. So our initial investment, I think Ellen might have some updated numbers, it was only 2.1 million. We really cobbled that together, but it turned into more than 50 million in grants. And I know that We've recently expanded these grand challenges, and I suspect that Ellen will be telling you a little more about it. So I'm really thrilled about the new grand challenges, and think that they're going to make a difference. I love the new model where we're really taking some of the things that were initial grand challenges and they're becoming something bigger. So one of them wasn't a grand challenge. We even, launched a couple of new centers. The one is related to quantum science and the other is about human sustainability in dry climates. So the Quantum New Mexico Institute, are you talking about this? You want it?
Go ahead, I want to hear what you have to say. Maybe you know something I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's a quantum institute.
I know. So it is a partnership with Sandia Labs and to pioneer the development of quantum information science and engineering. We're working hand in hand with national laboratories to develop next generation nuclear microreactors, thanks to 2 grants from the U.S. Department of Energy. And together we're making New Mexico a destination for quantum companies, nuclear technologies, and science around the world. So there's a lot of excitement about this. You're going to talk about the next one too. Why don't I let Ellen tell the story? Sometimes people give you some remarks and I hope that they've actually not stolen the thunder of the people that are coming after. And you know what? I don't want to steal any thunder whatsoever from, our great Vice President for Research. So with that, I'll just go on and turn it back over to the provost, and then we can hear from Ellen about what's been going on at UNM.
I'm sure that Ellen's remarks will be pretty arid. So I would like to introduce Dr. Ellen Fisher, Professor of Chemistry. Ellen joined us a couple of years ago as VPR, and when she did join us, one of the things, of course, that made her very impressive was her own accomplishments in her field in chemistry. But another that I think is really important is that she is a researcher in the science of team science. And when you look at where a lot of research is going, where a lot of funding is going, the ability to bring together teams, interdisciplinary teams, multidisciplinary teams, teams with very different approaches to a particular problem, challenge, or opportunity is incredibly important. And so we're very fortunate to have folks like Ellen here who are really thinking about and doing and have done research on how teams form and how teams perform in the research arena. One of Ellen's other great skills, of course, is that she's a master of the creation of acronyms. And we will probably hear a few of those. But what I'll say is that when I think about Ellen, I think about excellence, I think about loving learning, and I think about empowering novelty, and that spells Ellen. So without further ado.
Wow. Okay, with that kind of an introduction at all, I should just sit down, right? So I wanted to just start by saying that we developed this as a theme for this year's State of Research, and you'll see it as we go through. Because it's a really great way to think about what we do in the world of scholarship. We also create new knowledge, we discover things, we innovate, et cetera. So, but thinking about it as how we empower our ability to move forward into our future collectively is a really great way to think about what we do in the research enterprise. A couple of things that I'm going to point out is that when we started, we put together this as our logo. We figured this would be the last year that we could use the R1, because we were going to not be the only one. But it also enabled us to think about, you're gonna see this logo on every side, and it'll be smaller in a corner here, upper corner, lower corner, wherever. You'll also see the word empowering change. It'll be creating, investing in, discovering, exploring our future. So there's a lot of ways to think about this as a way to head towards what we're going in the future, which is a second thing that I wanted to point out about the last 2 years. This will be the third time that we've done the State of Research. In the last 2 years, I felt like it was really important to talk about what we were doing and being very intentional about what we've done, sort of looking backwards. And today I want to look a little bit more forward. So this is going to be split into 2 parts. We are going to talk about where we are or where we've been, and then we're also going to talk about where we're going. And then the last thing I want to say is sort of the roadmap for today's presentation is that you'll also see this logo with a little turquoise square around it. And when you see that, you'll know that that's where we have been intentional about our collaboration with our colleagues on the health sciences campus. And it doesn't mean that they don't exist in other places. There will be a lot of stuff that's focused on the central campus, but there are lots and lots of places where we are intentionally collaborating and building a shared vision for the future with respect to research at UNM. So with that, okay, I just hit the down. Okay, so we're going to start with where we've been. I don't know if this is a sunset or a sunrise, but you know, keep that in mind. And I wanted to start with the 40 years of impact. This is the cover for our latest trifold that was sitting out there on the table as you came in. If you didn't pick one up, it'd be great to pick it up. And this is one of our, we have a series now of these trifold marketing materials. And I think this is one thing I'm really proud of that we've done over the last year. We've had 3 of these go out. One of them was focused on research as education. One of them was focused on grand challenges. And this one now is focused on 40 years of impact. And we have more that are coming. And part of the reason that I'm really proud of this is that this is one way for us to raise the visibility of the amazing research that is done at UNM, is to really think about, and these get sent out to all of the VPRs at R1 and R2 institutions across the entire nation. We use them with the state legislature. We've used them in a lot of different venues where it's really important for us to really be able to talk about it, really bite a little in bite-sized pieces, okay, that people can take. So this was inspired by the fact that last year we celebrated the 40th anniversary of the Center for High Technology Materials. It's one of our interdisciplinary centers, which you will hear about today. 40 years that we've been at UNM supporting interdisciplinary research and investing in interdisciplinary research. And when you turn to the inside of the trifold, what you see is a timeline that shows this, because right after I learned about the 40th anniversary of CHTMI, I learned that CASA was celebrating its 35th anniversary. So it wasn't like we just did this once and decided not to do it again. So it is that obviously you guys can't read this, pick up one out there, but this is sort of the timeline. There's lots of great metrics in here. Our research centers have exceeded our expectations this last year. They generated more research expenditures than they have ever in the past, and this year we are on a track to exceed that as well. The 2 that I am going to spend a little bit of time talking about are the 2 that President Stokes just mentioned, that are our newest ones. The first is the Quantum New Mexico Institute, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this was a long time making this one because it's a joint venture with Sandia. We're going to bring in Lanel and other partners along the way, but we've already seen early successes. We just officially launched it in January, and with Ivan Deutsch at the helm, and it really does build off of the history of UNM with respect to quantum information science and engineering, and in particular that we also had a Category 2 center, CQUIC, which is the Center for Quantum Information and Control, and we're going to build this out and build this bigger and better. We're leveling this up, and again, we've already seen some early successes. We already have at least a couple of $1 million that are going to be run through the Quantum New Mexico Institute in new awards, and I know that we've got at least a couple more pending that are bringing in some community partners, industry partners, et cetera, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later as well. The other one that we launched in 2023 is ARID, which is Accelerating Resilience Innovations in Drylands Institute. This is an offshoot or a leveling up of one of the OG. We're going to start going OG. Okay, the original Grand Challenges teams, the Sustainable Water team. And so ARID has again, we've launched them last year. They are not only doing sustainable water, but they're also thinking bigger and better in that sense as well, because we need sustainable water, but we also need healthy ecosystems. We need clean energy. And so they've kind of wrapped some of their arms around some of those things because it's all part of the same thing. And again, just as one quick success here, we have $5 million in new funding that has already come in the last 9 months, basically to support ARID. And again, we've got several more proposals out there that we hope are going to get funded. So super excited about where ARID is going. I don't know if that's I'm moving too far away from things. Okay, sorry, I'm moving. Okay, in that case, that brings us to the Grand Challenges. And this is the presidential Grand Challenges program. President Stokes launched it. We reimagined it in 2022. And the idea was that we really thought this was so successful. She mentioned some numbers, the 2.1 million original investment, up to about 50 million is sort of what we thought until recently, and I'll throw out a new number there, but nobody quote me on it. But the idea was that we were very successful, and we invested in teams that had already seen some success, and so we just sort of supported them and provided them with what they needed to maybe get to the next level. What we decided was it was really important to also think about all those people that we had in our research community that had really great ideas. And there were lots of concepts that were just waiting to be sort of, fostered into something bigger than just an idea in somebody's head. So we created this structure. I love this diagram. I love showing it. But basically, we're looking at going from level 1, where we have concept teams. We provide support structures to get people to be better in their teams and thinking about how to be a better team. Potentially, they move into level 2, which is what we call the Grand Challenges teams, and then they level up potentially to become a center or institute, to become institutionalized at UNM. The other thing I like about this structure, and when I talk about it, I always point out there's lots of entrances and exits into it. And one of the things the reason that we wanted to do this and be intentional about it is that not everybody follows a linear path. Sometimes it curves around and moves, and we know that. We know that from research on how groups and teams interact. And so we wanted to make sure that that was part of the structure, and it was acceptable to say, you know what, we started to be a team, maybe we aren't a team, maybe we aren't a team right now. And so with that, I just want to point out that so far we really feel like this has been a successful structure to build a culture of collaboration, is to really build the skill sets to have people thinking about collaboration in a bigger way, even if they never extend beyond level 1 in the context of the Grand Challenge and the teams. So the new 3 new challenges that we introduced last year are up here. They are child health, just transition to green energy, and sustainable space research. And just within the last year, or last 9 months-ish of them being in existence, these 3 teams have already generated $10 million in extramural funding. So again, a really big success for just thinking about how do we collaborate and build and grow what we're doing here. All right. I'm going to show you next. Okay, I want to point out the 10 teams. I really swear I'm not moving that much. Okay. The 10 teams that were level 1 teams, here they are. They're listed here on the right-hand side of this slide. And I will also just note that these were awesome, great ideas, great places to be. When we went into the level 2, some of them said, you know what, we're not ready to go to level 2 yet. We're not going to do that. Some of them did apply for the level 2 funding, and they didn't get selected ultimately. I want to do a shout out to 2 of the teams, the STEM education team and the basic needs in higher education. Those 2 teams are continuing to do a lot of work together. They have stayed together. And just as one example, next month, the STEM education team has partnered with our research development office to hold a workshop on proposal development within STEM education. So again, I think this is evidence that this system is working. Everybody want to hear the number that we now think we've actually done with our new Grand Challenges director? We've collected more robust data for all of the teams now, going back to the originals, but also the level 2, the new level 2s, and the level 1 teams that also some of them generated some extramural funding. So how much do you think that we have generated so far in the history of the program for Grand Challenges? Anybody want to guess?
I've heard the numbers, so I can't.
Yeah, if you don't already know it. The president said over 50 million. She was wrong. Not wrong, it's still over 50 million, okay? But it's over a bigger number than that. So then I've narrowed it down for you. It's over 50 million. It's 70 million. We're very close to hitting 100 million. 100 million. That's the return on the investment. The investment is now up also a little bit. It went from 2.1, we're up to about 3 million, maybe 4 million in terms of an investment in the program. So think about that as an impact statement. Okay. Another program that we started a couple years ago is the Zincata Graduate Fellowship Program. This is an interdisciplinary program where we have students, graduate students from all over both campuses here, health sciences and main campus. And we have our second cohort going right now. This has been a wildly successful program where we bring together students from different disciplines. They get to interact with each other. They also get to learn more about what they can do to really make an impact as they go forward with whatever career choice they make as they leave here. And we were talking earlier, and I have one really quick anecdote about one of our students from the first cohort that he graduated. This is with an electrical and computer engineering. He graduated, has a job at a solar energy company, and he just went on and on about how, did testimonial about how the Zencata program really taught him that he really needed to be able to communicate, because what he did back in the lab or back behind the scenes was really important to the company staying in business so that he would continue to have a job. So I think we're being successful in demonstrating that this is important for students. Okay. Oh, I do want to point out, in the third round, our applications are due April 1, so that's coming up. Please, please, please encourage students to apply for this in this coming cohort. Not only do students receive fellowship money, they're also going to have the opportunity to apply for travel funds to go to professional conferences in their fields. Another way that we have started to look at how do we support the faculty and especially with respect to faculty recruitment is we started a central startup pool, and in FY23 we were able to cobble together some money to support this. It was about 1.5 million. These were for hires that happened this academic year. So hires that started fall of 2023 or spring of 2024. We committed about 1.3 million of that money, and that was then that successfully supported 20 faculty hires across our institution. And so I think just think about that we're working on providing the startup funds that are going to allow our faculty to be successful. And we're going to again talk a little bit more about how that's going to continue in the future. And then this is our We Are One Faculty Success Program, another way to support faculty in various ways so that they have what they need to be able to be successful in their research endeavors. These are 3 of our programs that we have now institutionalized. PERC is our program for enhancing research capacity. We focus on instrumentation. We have FAST, which is the faculty scholarship time. These are the acronyms that Provost Holloway was talking about earlier, but the faculty scholarship time that provides a teaching release for faculty. And then our newest one is Savers. This one we just started last fall, and I'm really happy to announce here that we're running another competition this spring. The applications are due on the 19th of April, but also that we've engaged our counterparts on the health sciences campus, and they're also going to be participating. And when you think about it, this is really for research enterprise software, and this was being in response to a lot of faculty saying, well, why don't we have this piece of software? Why don't we have that piece of software? And if we're going to get it for the university, we're going to get it for the whole university. So this is one of our ways that we're going to demonstrate that we are one university. I want to do a quick shout out to another one of our traditions here at UNM is the annual research lecture. This year is the 68th annual research lecture. This year's is going to be presented by Felicia Smith, who's one of our university distinguished professors in biology. It'll be a week from Wednesday in this same room. If you haven't already signed up, I recommend that you do. Felicia is a mammologist, and she's going to present a lecture on using the past. That's the bones in the background. She does ecology stuff. Okay. Anyway, it's going to be really interesting, but it's studying the past to tell about our future with respect to mammals. So I think that's going to be really interesting. Another thing I wanted to just do a shout out here, because it's another thing that we've done that has been responsive to faculty, trying to do what we were calling here targeted sponsored research. And really, this came about because we had a number of faculty who were working with small communities, municipalities, and getting relatively small grants. And one of the issues that they were finding was that because of some of the constraints that our Office of Sponsored Projects had put onto the budgetary element of those proposals, it was finding it very difficult. So we've done 2 things that have lifted that burden and been said, okay, we can pull back the constraints a little bit on the minimum PI effort, and also on what the F&A rate that we charge on non-federal grants that don't have a sponsored sponsor dictated rate, okay? And so if you want to talk, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's fairly detailed and we sent out guidelines. All of those are listed on our OSP website, and we can get you the direct information. But this is really a key to being able to do more and more of our community-based research projects, and also helping faculty to figure out ways to advance their scholarship. Okay, this is another slide that I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on, but these are new people that have joined us in the last year. At the top, Paramal is new to the university. He's our new associate. We decided that a year is about how long you can be new. So he's been here about 9 months. He started last July. Our new associate vice president for research, has been very focused on looking at more of our compliance kinds of things, but has really also dug in on our IP exceptions and contracts and trying to streamline those processes. Tracy Wenzel's not new to UNM, but she is new to the position. She's our new senior program coordinator for the Grant Challenges program. Those two are not new positions, but they're new people in those positions. And the other 4 are actually new positions where we started to look at where do we need to provide more support? Where could we be doing a better job? And so we hired Jim O'Brien as a senior director of development that's joint with the foundation. He's really focused on corporate and foundation relations and has been working with the Grand Challenges teams and the Category 3 centers to think about what their opportunities and needs are. We have Nika Mitchell, who is a UNM alum, who has joined us to really work on our responsible conduct of research training. And there's been lots of workshops and stuff that she has just jumped into this spring. She just started in January. We have Anlo Schmidt-Olivier, who joined us last fall as a research translation officer. This is a brand new position, so we're still figuring out exactly what's happening, but Anlo has been working very closely with Dave and others to think about how we enhance what we're doing with our IP and tech transfer operations. And then lastly, we have Raquel Thomas, who joined us last spring, a little less than a year ago, and she is the postdoctoral affairs coordinator. So we're providing really much better and more coordinated support for our postdocs, and that is again in conjunction with what's happening on the health sciences campus as well. Okay. All right, so this is the last slide in this section, these are the numbers. Okay, and so we're going to end with measures of research excellence. This section, not the whole presentation, but it's a great transition because this is what our numbers were basically around for FY23, and there's a couple that I'm going to point out and come back to in just a minute as we look to the future. The first is up in the upper left is the 348 million. So we hit almost 350 million in research expenditures last year. That's a really good number. I want you to keep that one in your head, okay? And then in the lower right-hand corner, 178 research doctorates awarded in last academic year, the 22-23 academic year. That's also a really great number, okay? So hang on to those. The other one I want to just point out right here is that in the period between FY19 and FY23, we had 37 startup companies that were started out of UNM intellectual property. And I want to point that number out in particular because that encompasses the COVID time. And so that's a huge number to think about when you also think about the fact that we were all doing things in quarantine and so forth. And so while some of those may have gotten impetus before FY19, just to think about that as a measure of the ability of our researchers to continue to move forward, even when we were within the worldwide pandemic. Okay, so hang on to, we'll call it roughly 350 million and 180 doctorates, okay? So where we're going. Again, I'm not sure if this is a sunset or a sunrise, okay? But it's a great picture. So we're thinking now about the future. And I wanted to also point out that I didn't pull up any specific in the where we were headed. I didn't pull up any specific projects or successes. We've had so many over the last year. And the last 2 years when I've done this presentation, inevitably, if I bring out this project or that project, inevitably somebody comes up to me afterwards and said, well, why didn't you include my project? Okay, so I didn't include anybody's project in where we were, okay? They were all amazing. And so I just decided to not highlight any particular projects. But let's think about moving forward. So I ended the last section with measures of research excellence. We're going to start this section with measures of research excellence. And I want to just take a moment to say that this is something I started to think about when I was putting this together. I really want to talk about the future. What can we do? How do we measure success? All of those standard questions. And just last week, had a conversation with Provost Holloway, VPR Racy from the Health Sciences campus, and EVP Doug Ziodonis, also from Health Sciences. And the four of us meet on a fairly regular basis. And I like to call our meetings the Fab Four. Nobody else likes that, but I like it. And so we have the Fab Four meeting, and I've been mulling over this idea of let's set a goal for a collective number. And by the way, those numbers I showed you in the where we've been, those were all collective numbers across all of our campuses. Okay, so this is a number that is a UNM We Are One number. So we said, okay, what if we just said, let's hit 400 million? Why haven't we hit 400 million? And I remember I said to Hangame in a meeting, I said, I think we should hit 400 million. And she said, where are you getting that number from? And I said, I don't know, it's just in my head. But then I went and I dug in and I actually looked at data, got some data and plotted it out. And turns out that we should be at 400 million. Okay. So I said, well, let's talk about this. The Fab Four should talk about this. So we talked about it and we all agreed that 400 million was not a bad number to be thinking about. We could probably do it with a 3 to 5% increase in our research expenditures over the next 2 to 4 years. It's a good goal, maybe not quite a stretch goal. Come back to that in a minute. Because the next thing somebody said was, well, what would it take to get to 600 million? And I thought, okay, so let's talk about that. So let's hang on to that one for just a minute. But then I started to say, what about some of those other numbers? What are other measures besides the dollars that we bring in about how our research enterprise has an impact on the state of New Mexico, on the world, on our own people, right? And so that 180, 178, 180 number, could we get that to 200? What about 225? Okay, can we actually increase our PhD production in ways that are meaningful and get us again? That's a measure of excellence in research. We went from 1,000 students supported. We have about 1,000 students total that are supported on extramural funding. What if we got that to 1,500? I'm going to say, what if we got it to 2,000? What if every one of our students that were in the research enterprise were supported in some way? Wouldn't that be awesome, right? And then this last one, I haven't talked about really much at all, but it came out of, again, doing a deep dive on the data. And every year we send data to NSF, and they have what they call the NSF herd data, and all the institutions in the country send their data off to NSF. And the one we generally report on is the research expenditures and do that comparison. But we did a little bit deeper dive on that in my office because we're all nerds and we like data. And one of the things that came out that really stood out was that right now, these are for FY22 data because that's the latest herd data that's available. Right now, UNM's support from business in terms of our research expenditures, the number of dollars that come from business, which is for-profit industry, is 1%. 1%. The amount that comes from nonprofit is 5%. So we are at 6% total in this category, which is, we're calling it here industry support. And what that really means is for-profit and nonprofit entities. We're at 6%. Nationwide, the average for all institutions is 17%. Okay, so we're really underperforming in this area. So I thought, okay, let's put that on our measures of excellence. Could we think about what we could do to increase those measures? Okay, so this conversation with the Fab Four, we went, okay, we have to really think about what do we need to do to get there. And the comment that I'm going to make right now is that we all agreed on the list, and maybe Hangame will correct me if I'm wrong, and some of the things on there, maybe I worded them a little bit differently, but I think we can agree on this next list. And this is what we thought needed to be doing. Faculty recruitment and retention was absolutely number one. Improving our research spaces is also really high on that list, okay? Diversifying the research portfolio is huge for us, right? That's the other way to think about growing. How do you get to that next level of 600 million? The fourth one, increasing interdisciplinary research efforts, as you heard from the provost, this is the wave of the future. If we don't do this, we are going to be left behind. And then enriching student experiences. That is absolutely the number one thing that we do as an institution, is to support our students and to provide them with the types of enriching experiences that they need to be able to go out in the world and do great things after they leave UNM. So I got it kind of right? Okay, perfect. I got somebody keeping an eye on me. So maybe the little bit of difference that may show up as we pursue this, as we move forward and continue to refine this effort of having a shared research vision, is that it might look different on the health sciences campus than it does on main campus in terms of how we go about doing it. It might look a little bit different, but keep in mind that this is where we're headed. This is what we're going to be focused on. So if we talk about faculty recruitment and retention, I think we can all agree that the faculty are the heart and soul of our research enterprise, that we need to be investing in and supporting our faculty, both our great faculty that we already have, but we also need to bring in new faculty that are going to continue to do great things at UNM. So I talked about the central startup pool that we initiated and actually used to hire faculty for this year. In FY24, we were able to put together about $2.1 million for this central startup pool from a variety of sources. That represents a 40% increase in what we did the previous year. And again, this is going to be for hires that are going on right now for faculty that will start in the 24-25 academic year. So far, we've allocated about 1.7 million of that out to, and we did it early before the negotiations started. So deans and ADRs knew about this back in November, December timeframe. This year we had the number of requests we received for support was 29. Last year I said it was 20. And we successfully hired 20. We have 29 requests this year. And we still haven't heard. We don't know what the outcome is going to be, but the really cool thing about this is that we are looking to institutionalize this. We have now built it into our FY25 budget within the OVPR. And I also know that the provost has also created an allocation within his budget, and that's going to continue. So this is something that's really going to be important for us to be able to continue to hire the best and the brightest faculty at UNM. And I just had another quick quiz for the audience, okay? For just these 29 faculty, would anybody care to guess what the total amount of startup that is needed to support these hires? We asked people when they put in requests what the estimated startup cost was going to be. So for 29 faculty, what do you think that total number was?
6 million, 20.
6 million, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. Wow, you guys, okay. It turned out to be about 7.2 million for this set of faculty. This is not all the faculty that we hire in a year. And so we've been starting to try to collect these data so that we understand what is the total amount of startup funds that we need in any given year. And I'm going to say it's going to be in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 million easily is what it takes to support these faculty, to bring them in and to really have outstanding faculty at UNM. So just keep those numbers in mind. So that 2.1 million may sound like a lot of money, but it really is not when you think about the total amount that is being used. I'm also going to say that none of this is for faculty that we would hire on the health sciences campus. They've got a different structure and a different mechanism for doing it. So think about that as well. Okay. Another thing that we are doing in the context of faculty recruitment and retention is we have two other We Are One faculty success programs with also great acronyms that we have been working on. The FRESH, which stands for Fostering Research Excellence in the Social Sciences and Humanities. We are in our second year of that program. We've had over 40 participants. This is done as a partnership with the College of Education and Health Sciences, as well as the College of Arts and Sciences. And it's really focused on increasing the research capacity by building the capabilities of our faculty. And specifically, we do a lot of cohort building and community building, collaboration, but we also talk to them about and give them the skill set they need to go after extramural funding. We've had lots of successes here. And the other thing that's really cool is that we know that the University of Kansas heard about this program from our research development office. And they are actually piloting a program that's very similar to what we're doing because it's been so successful here at UNM. So it'd be really great if we saw this program just continue to go out, and we'll put tentacles in everywhere across the country. The other one is our LIFT program. This stands for Leadership, Innovation, and Faculty Transformation. And the idea here was that, we say here at UNM a lot that we don't have a very deep bench. And if you talk about any particular area, everybody says, well, we got this person, we got that person, and then we're out. We don't have anybody else to throw into the game. So we said, what can we do to try to think about deepening our research leadership bench? And we came up with this program. We did a very small pilot last year with 3 faculty. It was very successful. And we've now institutionalized it, have a full cohort of 6 faculty that are participating in the program this year. We've spent about $100,000 on this, but what we're really doing is helping those faculty to really think deeply about what they want to do, where they want to go, and what they need to get there. And then we're helping them to figure out how to do that. And they range in everything from developing new graduate programs, graduate education programs, thinking about what does it take to build out a center, or even just what does it take to lead an interdisciplinary program, an interdisciplinary grant? What does it take to collaborate with health sciences? And then we've been reaching out and helping people to do that as well. Improving research spaces. This is a beautiful building that we're in, and so I can't make my point very well standing in this building, but you all know that we have a lot of buildings and other research spaces that need improvement. And so just as a couple of ways of how we're starting to address this, in the past year, we created the Research Facilities Committee, which is an outgrowth of our Research Council. It also is in conjunction with the facilities management, and we also have members of Nicole Dobson's team. So we're really trying to do this in a collaborative way to think about what do we need with research facilities in general. The research safety, I'm sure some of you have heard that we did a research safety culture assessment. But beyond that, in terms of thinking about it in terms of facilities, there's so much that goes into how we can build out capacity within the buildings that we have that exist. When we start to think about infrastructure that affects safety, things, eye washes, showers, and things like that, there are lots of things that we can do. And again, we're working with the EHS department as well as facilities management to try to coordinate some of those efforts in improving our research facilities. Building core facilities. This is one of my passions, is around core facilities. And I haven't really been doing a lot in that space because there have been a lot of other things to do. But I'm really proud to say now that we've built into our budget for FY25, we're going to have set aside funds specifically to think about how we can build out and support our core facilities. And I will say this is a place where the health sciences campus has done an enormous amount. They're way ahead of Central Campus on this effort. They have great core facilities, and they've kind of got it figured out. So we're working to get our side up to speed a little bit more and be able to develop that. And then the last one, research space renovation. This is another place that kind of goes along with the other ones. But I want to point out that we've been contributing to some of the renovations that have happened, but also thinking about how do we do this in a coordinated fashion? How do we get research building projects onto the capital projects leadership team to discuss how do we raise the visibility of the needs in various spaces? Along with that, this is another tack that we've taken. This is the idea that one of the things that we could do is go after extramural funding that supports the building, actually building things. And a key one of these is the NSF mid-scale infrastructure program, which gives you $120 million to build a new building, basically. But in order to do that, in order to actually have a proposal to that kind of a competition actually be competitive, we need to do things like invest in creating visualizations that have things like location mapping and detailed programming, because then by visualizing it, we're able to then show to reviewers that we have the ability to do this. This one that you're seeing here is one that we did recently to support a proposal where that combines the Quantum New Mexico Institute with a bigger project that's going into, they went into the economic development, EDA, I believe right, for a hub in quantum. And again, lots and lots of big money, but the idea was here in Albuquerque, we would be building out a space that people would be using to develop quantum lasers and other kinds of things. So physical lab space, these are renderings that actually went into that proposal, and we'll find out later this year whether or not that was successful. I'm not going to say it was going to because of the pretty pictures, but we all know that pretty pictures are nice to look at. Okay. Diversifying the research portfolio. This gets to that one metric that I talked about, the 12%, aiming for that. But before I talk about the industry partners, I want to say that we have great partnerships with our government relations folks, and we have been much more intentional about how we go after and set up our federal priorities. And even though Congress hasn't actually passed a budget, so we don't really know about some of them, we did learn in the last couple of weeks about these two, and I wanted to highlight them here. The Artemis and 3D STEAM Challenge and Training Program, which is going to get funded through NASA, and the UNM Cybersecurity for Community Microgrids, which is an offshoot from our EPSCoR program, and it's going to get funded for about 650 million out of the 650,000, sorry, through the DOE, and it's 850,000, not 850 million. I said that. The main point of this slide, though, is right dead set in the center is the community partners that we have brought on board with this. And it includes CNMI, Explora, Geltmore, Bandelier Elementary, ABQ, Hispano Chamber, the Meow Wolf, and Sandia National Labs. And I really want to point that out because, again, part of what we're doing here is building an ecosystem, and it takes a village, it really does, to do some of these projects. And it demonstrates that going out and finding new partners and building our community impact. So building industry partnerships is maybe a little bit more difficult. This is a slide that you don't need to spend a lot of time looking at it, but if you look at the right-hand side over here, what you see is a big hole around New Mexico. This is for the Industry University Collaborative Research Centers, or IUCRCs. We don't have one of these anywhere in New Mexico, and we never have had one. This is an NSF program that funds research industry collaborations. And so that's a big area, like, wow, we could do a lot better here. When we come back to the left-hand side, the thing I want to point out here is these are engines and hubs, the NSF Engines program, which is a new program at NSF, and the EDA hubs. What we got funded for, the little bitty circles in the state of New Mexico, those are for potential. Those are development, phase one, whatever we want to call it, but there's development. So people saw potential in us, but the big round squares and the big round circles and the big squares that are sort of orange and red, those are where they said, yeah, these people are ready to go. We're going to give them a lot of money. So we got small amounts of money to develop what we can do here. We've got a lot of potential. We want to continue to build on that. And so we can get to that 12%. Increasing interdisciplinary research efforts. I want to say again, I've used this phrase, building a culture of collaboration. One of the programs that has been very successful on the health sciences campus is their Clinical and Translational Science Center. We found lots of ways to collaborate with them, most recently thinking about how to build out our high performance computing in collaboration with CTSC. One of our LIFT participants from the first year is collaborating with folks from the College of Pharmacy. They put in an NIH P20 collaborative proposal. We've yet to hear on whether that's going to happen. I keep hearing about, let's build a center of excellence in the area of addictions or substance use disorders. That would be, again, a leveling up of one of our OG Grand Challenges teams. We'll see where that's going to go. R&D week, we have research and discovery week. We had the second annual one last year, had great participation. We've had more workshops and things that were focused on collaborating with within ourselves, amongst our campuses, and also with our communities. And then also the Grand Challenges, of course, is one key area of that. So with that, the Grand Challenges, I just want to say we did our level 1, level 2. We're planning on having another cycle of those coming up in the next year or so. You'll see more on that. And I want to just say, because that's how we generate new ideas. That's how we get people to be more engaged, and we keep going along that line. And then the last one I want to point out is enriching student experience. This is the 5th area. We're going to develop a Grand Challenges Fellowship. We got the green light on going forward with creating a program that would engage both undergraduate and graduate students in the context of the Grand Challenges. So look for more to come on that. We are always have been engaged with experiential learning programs through a variety of entities on campus, including UROC, El Centro de la Rosa, and others. But we're also looking at potentially developing another program that would have a mentor undergraduate student kind of a experiential learning program. And then lastly, we are engaging as an institution in thinking about how we can build and grow and sustain and support our interdisciplinary graduate programs. We have a few now. Is there a way for us to maybe think about how we might grow and build those? And perhaps in the context of some of these new Category 3 centers that we've been talking about, and the older ones too. And with that, this is my last slide that I wanted to say. This is where we're going. And I don't want to try to suggest that we're going down into a deep, dark hole where we don't know what's happening at all. This is from Carlsbad Caverns, but I really want you to think about anybody who's ever been to Carlsbad. It's just an area of wonder and amazement. You go in there and it's like no other experience that you've ever had. And so I am hopeful for the future of research at UNM, and that we will have that same kind of experience of not really sure where we're going. We head down kind of a twisty turning road, but what we get out of it is just absolute amazement and astonishment at what we can do and build and grow here at UNM. So with that, we'll open it with for questions, and I'm happy to answer anything you might have. Or we could just go straight to refreshments.
And we're also able to take questions from our viewers online via the Q&A function on Zoom if you'd like to submit questions online.
Yeah,
So relative to the goal of trying to build the collaborations with industry, how do we see ourselves making that push, since we are, you said we're sort of underperforming in that area, and how do we move that needle?
That's a really good question, and it's something we've been kicking around. And one of the things that I have to give some credit to AVP Dave Hansen, that he's really spent a lot of time over the last couple of years building relationships. I think that's always going to be the first step, is building relationships. But more than just building those relationships is figuring out where the obstacles are. And so then once we understand what the obstacles are, then we can start to remove some of those obstacles. And so one suggestion that has come up that some other institutions have done, and I'm going to get this wrong, Dave will correct me if I've got it wrong, but thinking about how we can think about the license, this is just one way, but the licensing and IP questions, those are always the hang up points when we start to collaborate with industry. Who owns the IP? How do we hand it off? How do we not hand it off? What do we do? Those kinds of things. And I think we could probably come up with some mechanisms that we would be able to offer to some of our industry partners that would reduce or remove some of those barriers with respect to who owns the IP, and also then what kind of funding it might take to allow commercialization or the next steps in the IP tech transfer process. So I think that's a one big area that we're looking at, and trying to think creatively about how we might address that, but also looking at what other institutions have done in that regard. And there are some that have, I don't want to call them blanket agreements, but sort of larger master types agreement. That's another way that we could go. So I think there's some things like that we could do. I also think that we haven't done that great a job at selling what we bring to the companies and why they might be providing us with funding. There are lots of things that we can provide back to those industries that include workforce, that we're a major producer of workforce, right? But also access to some of the kinds of resources that we have at a university. So I think there's some things that we can play with. We're still sort of exploring what it's really going to take. But we've been starting to build relationships, and I think that's the first step for all of this. So yeah.
I have a suggestion to ask PI who have experience of working with industrial partners and have potentially knowledge about issues so they can.
Yeah, and like I said, we're sort of just starting to think about what this is gonna take. I think it might be a really interesting idea to have some kind of a faculty advisory committee that would be exactly what you just said, of faculty that have some experience working either in industry or working with industry. And that would be a great group to have advise us on different things that they might have seen or understood from their experiences. I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm curious what we might have in terms of data or statistics as specifically related to our doctoral graduates in terms of postgraduate success and placement. And wondering if we have those statistics, how we might be able to integrate that into some of our goals, because numeric objectives for producing graduates isn't necessarily a measure of success if those graduates are then going into work that is unrelated to what they've worked so hard to get their degrees in. They don't have to necessarily go into academia, but it would be nice if we knew if they were going into another chapter where they're actually using what they had done in seeking their degrees. Do we have those data, or is it worthwhile thinking about how we can collect those data to have a better understanding of the value of the investment that our students and we are making?
Well, I know Heather Meckler is sitting right back here, so I don't want to point at her and put her on the spot. My understanding is that we don't have really that kind of detailed knowledge of what our students are doing at the graduate level when they graduate. Actually, we don't have it at the undergraduate level either. And it's really kind of hard data to capture, because part of it is you could do exit surveys, and that's great for right when they exit, but 6 months later, they may be employed completely differently, or they may be unemployed when they graduate and then become employed, so that it's hard data to collect. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't try or that it wouldn't help inform, because I agree with you. The numbers are just numbers, right? They are ways for us to think about and measure whether or not we've made progress. And the interesting thing to me was that I just saw an ad for something that's happening at the University of Nevada at UNLV. They're an R1 at this point. And the numbers that I saw were that they had $54 million in research expenditures last year. They had 225 PhDs that graduated last year. Okay. So I don't know that there's not a one-for-one comparison there, but it strikes me that maybe that is an area that we're underperforming, and maybe we need to think about not only what you just suggested, Carl, but also thinking about where might we look to shore up certain programs, or think about, and I know Maria Lane's been doing this in graduate studies, is to think about time to completion of graduate degrees, right? That's another thing that maybe we need to think about that. There are lots of other factors, what kind of support we're providing graduate students while they're graduate students, and what we could do to maybe look about that. So it is a very complex problem, and you're right, I reduced it completely down to one single number. But it is a very interesting thing to start to think about in terms of what does that mean and where we might want to be going with respect to providing really great graduate education experiences for our students. So. Yeah. Heather.
Can I address Carl's question and provide a bit of an assist to your answer? So the New Mexico County is currently working to partner with the U.S. Census Bureau on their post-secondary education outcomes project, which will in fact give us that sort of data to the point where we can drill down to specific years of graduation, level of degree, the field in which they obtained their degree, and then a certain number of years out, where they're working, geographically, but also in what field they're working. So you can see, somebody earned a PhD in biology, but they're working retail, that there's a mismatch. But if you see that they're in academia or working in industry or something, that, there wasn't a match. And so I'm not exactly sure of the timeline at this point, but I would guess within the next 12 to 18 months. So we'll be in contact.
But I wasn't wrong. We don't have that data, and it is hard to collect, right?
And also the operations of the federal government. So
Yeah,
it's not just us.
Exactly. Yeah, back here.
I got about 3 comments. One is, I didn't see master's students. A lot of the engineering students get a master's going to industry.
Yep.
Make, 150K a year.
Mhm.
And that's a terminal degree.
Yep.
I don't know if we want to track that or not. So that's one comment. And
Mhm.
another is, I run the Manufacturing Training and Technology Center
Mhm.
and the Manufacturing Engineering Program. And we have a really good facility that's underutilized, but we do get industry coming in and paying to use our equipment as
Right.
well as other researchers.
Yep.
With the industry money coming in, is that captured in your 1% or 12%? And should it be? Is that something you want to consider?
Yeah, so what those research expenditures are money that is coming in to fund research activity at the university.
Okay.
What you're talking about is a fee for service. And so it isn't necessarily captured, but
That's not part of your fault.
it's not part of the 12%. And whether or not it should be, maybe it should be, but that's where investing in our core facilities, where we would be then bringing in additional external partners to use our facilities, is another way to think about how we build that partnership so that we're not just doing a fee for service, but we're actually collaborating with those businesses to be able to produce different things or to do other things. So it's a good point that you make. And the thing about master students, yeah, we can track the master students. That's another measure to track it. I would say in the world of R1 institutions, we talk a lot about the doctorates just because it is a terminal degree in so many different areas. And so the other thing that's not captured in that one number of research doctorates is also not some of the other terminal degrees that we have here. And our professional degrees are not included in that either. And so it does not capture the MDs, the lawyers that we graduate, and other things like that. So maybe we need to think about a different measure there. But I still think it's an interesting number to think about in terms of the future. So maybe we need to have 12 or 15 measures of excellence that we show up there. We just picked 4.
I
Yeah.
had a third.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
So, we bring in people, right now, I'm on 4 different grants and most of the grants are on education, bringing them into our lab facility to learn various processes in semiconductors and microfabrication. So we bring in some research money on that, but I've had companies now saying they would like us to do some of their training for them. So there's another revenue stream there, and then that money can be used to keep our fab going and upgrading our equipment and whatnot. So that's-
Yeah, I think there's lots of different ways to partner, and I want to just do another shout out to one of the new people that we hired, Jim O'Brien, who's working with corporate and foundation relations. And part of it is that this is another place where there may be other ways for us to partner with industry. Sponsoring research is one, creating fellowships is another, doing training is another. And I also think that there are also in-kind kinds of things that we could be looking at, including new equipment for facilities like the one you're talking about. So yeah, there's lots of different avenues for us to be partnering with industry. And we're just sort of getting started in making it a real effort of our office, as opposed to sort of letting what happens naturally sort of generate and percolate. We're really being intentional about how we're going after some of these things now. So thank you.
Thank you all. I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up there, because I know everybody came to listen to Dr. Fisher speak, but also came for the snacks and the reception that we have. And so that's outside waiting for us. So again, thank you very much for joining us today for our 2024 State of Research. Thank you, VPR Fisher, for putting it on again and letting the community, university community know what we're working on. And please join us outside for the reception.